This meeting is being recorded.
Well, hey folks, and welcome to Remembering Dunbar 2023. We are so happy you took the time out of your busy lives to join with us in this tribute to a great author and poet, Paul Laurence Dunbar. I am Oni Lasana, and I'll be sharing MC duties with Betty Haskins, who you will meet later. Our Murph is our tech, all the way from Ireland. And our lineup includes poets, storytellers, and as Dunbar would say, plain old folk who love his poetry and folktales. Before we get into our tribute, we have a few housekeeping tips to bring to your attention. We are recording the program, and if you don't want to be seen in the recording, that's fine. Just turn off your video and enjoy. I hope you brought your Dunbar book to read along and maybe even share your favorite Dunbar poem with us at the end. During the program, everyone will be muted except our presenters. Feel free to use your reaction button right down at the bottom navigation if you're on a laptop and give us a thumbs up, or you can show some love after a poem. We will not use the chat during the program as it can be very distracting. However, you will find the order of appearances and more information on how to stay in touch with us right in the chat. Closed caption is available in your personal settings. Our program is a little over an hour. So at the end of the program, we will gladly entertain your feedback, your comments, and if you want to share a poem, all you have to do is hit the reaction button and raise your hand. So we are all lined up and everybody gets a chance, and our tech, Murph, he'll get to see you, okay? Now it's time for me to introduce you to the man of the hour, Paul Laurence Dunbar. Paul Laurence Dunbar was an American poet, author, lyricist, and novelist. Yes, he was born the first generation of free Africans in America on June 27, 1872, to Joshua and Matilda Dunbar. They were both enslaved Africans in America. Joshua Dunbar served in the Civil War, and Matilda Dunbar nurtured her son in the love of writing. Dunbar wrote his first poem at the age of 6. He was the only African-American student in his class at Central High School in Dayton, Ohio. He served as the class poet, president of the literary club, and he wrote the school's graduating song. And later, he wrote the school song for Tuskegee University, a well-known HBC, historical Black college. When Dunbar graduated high school, it was due to racism that his desire to become a lawyer was not possible. So he found work as an elevator operator while supporting his mother. Dunbar kept plugging away, and he continued to write and edit his own newspaper with the assistance of his friends, Neville and Orville Wright of the aviation fame. He sold his first book of poetry, Oak and Ivy, at the age of 19, and he never gave up on his dream to be a successful writer. Dunbar's outright protest poems and his direct rejection of the dominant racial stereotypes of the day made him a leader in dispelling the myth that Africans in America were unable to be educated. Dunbar was unique and was gifted in his use of personification as he gave voices to animals and nature. Dunbar not only wrote poems in Northern dialect, but he also wrote in Southern dialects and experimented with German and Irish dialects, of which those poems you will hear today. Regardless of his race, the sale of his books made him one of the most successful American writers of his time. He was the first African-American author to become internationally known as a creator of poetry, fiction, theater, plays, short stories, dramatic sketches, novels, essays, lectures, and musical compositions. Yes, Dunbar was on Broadway. Dunbar's use of folklore in the language of his people, their thoughts, emotions, and accomplishments transcended the color line. Dunbar often praised his people rather than attack Europeans in much of his work, and he was hailed by the great abolitionist Frederick Douglass as the poet of the Negro race. We hail him as the father of the spoken word movement and our American Shakespeare. That's right. Dunbar married Alice Ruth Moore in 1898, who was also an established author and poet. They lived in Washington, D.C. while he worked at the Library of Congress. Alice and Paul separated in 1905, and they had no children. From 1896 to 1905, Dunbar published 12 books, more than any other African American before 1950. At the age of 33, he died from tuberculosis at his home in Dayton, Ohio. In 1975, Paul Dunbar was featured on a U.S. postage stamp, and the grand home that he worked so hard to buy for his mother still stands in Dayton, Ohio, as a national parks, landmark, and museum. In 2022, at the outlet of his sesquicentennial, that means his 150th anniversary, the National Park Services commissioned, and the US government commissioned, a US gold commemorative coin in his image. And his image is also available on driving license plates in the state of Ohio. We, the Love of Dunbar Collective, have met for a year now, discussing, reciting, laughing, and joking, and arguing, and carrying on, studying the life and works of Paul Dunbar. Our program today is in remembrance of the man who died on this day, February 9th, in 1906 in Dayton, Ohio. On this poetic and storytelling journey, we offer a few of his poems and folktales based on the themes of childhood, love, activism, historical tributes, religion, and death. Now, we have a parental advisory. If you have any small children in the room, we just want you to know that we do have a video we will present on Dunbar's poem, Sympathy, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it might be inappropriate for young children to view because there is some historical frontal nudity in it. But we'll let you know when the video, so keep the kids with us, and we'll let you know when the video is going to play. All right? So now on with our program. Childhood segment. Dunbar loved children. Many of his poems were to children, about children, and possibly about his own childhood. In our opening segment, we will hear In the Morning. That's one of his most famous recited poems by Betty Haskins. Opportunity. Ooh, that little troubled boy, that little troublemaker, presented by Jody Fitterber. And When a Fella's Itching to Be Spanked. Dunbar might have wrote that about himself. And you're going to hear that from Wanda Owens. So please welcome my sister, my soul sister in Dunbar, Betty Haskins.
Thank you, Oni. In the morning. Lias, lias, bless the Lord. Don't you know the day's abroad? If you don't get up, you scamp, there'll be trouble in this camp. I'm not gonna let you sleep while I make your board and keep. Well, that's a pretty how to do. Don't you hear me, lias, you? Bet if I come across this floor, you won't find no time to snow. Daylight all a shining in while you sleep. Why, it's a sin. Ain't the candlelight enough to burn out without a snuff, but you go the morning through, burning up the daylight too? Lias, don't you hear me call? No use turning to the wall. I can hear that mattress squeak. Don't you hear me when I speak? This here clock done struck all 6. Caroline, bring me them dead sticks. Oh, you down, sir. You down. Look at here. Don't you dare to frown. March yourself and wash your face. Don't you splatter all the place. I got something else to do besides cleaning up after you. Take that comb and fix your head. Look just like a feather bed. Look at here, boy. I let you see you shan't roll your eyes at me. Come here. Bring me that there strap. Boy, I'll whip you till you drap. You done felt yourself too strong, and you surely got me wrong. Sit down at that table there. Just you whimper if you dare. Every morning on this place seem like I must lose my grace. And fold your hands and bow your head. Wait until the blessing said. Lord have mercy on our souls. Don't you dare to touch them rolls. Bless the food we won't eat. You sit still, I see your feet. You just try that trick again. Give us peace and joy. Amen. Let's welcome our next Dunbarian, Jody.
Opportunity. Granny's gone a visiting. Seen her get her shawl when I was a hiding down behind the garden wall. Seen her put her ballin' on. Seen her tie the strings. And I's gone to dreaming now 'bout them cakes and tings. On the shelf behind the door, mercy, what a feast. Soon as she gets out of sight, I can eat in peace. I've been watching for a week, just for this here chance. Mercy, when I gets in there, I just surely dance. Lemon pie and ginger cake, let me sit and think. Vinegar and sugar too, that'll make a drink. If there's one thing that I loves most particularly, it is eating sweet things and a drinking sangaree. Lordy, won't poor Granny cry when she sees the shelf? When I think about her face, I most shame myself. Well, she gone, and here I is, back behind the door. Look here, Gran's done expected me. There ain't no sweets no more. Ever sweet is hid away, just undone up brown. Plus a think that someone thought there was tears around. That just breaks my heart in two. Oh, how bad I feel, just to think my own grandma believed that I had steal. And now please welcome Wanda.
Unmute Wanda, please. Wanda needs to be unmuted. Hold up, Wanda.
Okay. When a fella's itching to be spanked, when a fella stomp around making lots of noise, grandma says, there's certain times come to little boys when they need a shingle or the soft side of a plank. She says we're itching for a right good spank. And she says, now dash you wait, it's a coming sooner or late when a fella's itching for a spank. When a fella's out of school, you know how he feels. Grandma says we wriggle around like lots of eels. Why, it's like a man that's just home from out of jail. What's the use of scolding if we pull Trey's tail? Grandma says though, just you wait, it's a coming sooner or late. Use the boys that's itching to be spanked. Cats is funny creatures, and I like to make them yowl. Grandma always look at me with an awful scowl. And she says, young gentlemen, mama should be thanked if you get your knickerbockers right well spanked. It's a coming sooner or late when a fella's itching to be spanked. If you find the days it's getting awful hot in school, and you know a swimming place where it's nice and cool, or you know a catfish hole brimming full of fish, who's going to sit around school and wish? Tain't no use to hide your bait. It's a coming sooner or late when a feller's itching to be spanked. Old folks know most everything about the world, I guess. Grandma does. We wish she know just a little less. But I always kind of think it'd be as well if they wouldn't always have to get up and tell We kids wish that they just wait. It's a coming sooner or late when a feller's itching to be spanked. And now let's welcome back Betty.
The next segment of our program deals with Dunbar's take on love. Dunbar was no stranger to romance and love, as demonstrated by the swooning ladies at his performances. However, his love for Alice, who became his wife, is legendary. Tonight, we present 3 of his poems on love. Gail Mello will bring us Invitation to Love, written in standard English. Oni shares Encouragement, a flirty little poem written in Southern dialect. And finally, Murphy gives us a taste of Dunbar's foray into Irish dialect with Circumstances Alter Cases. Let's welcome Gail.
Invitation to love. Come when the nights are bright with stars, or when the moon is mellow. Come when the sun his golden bars drops on the hayfield yellow. Come in the twilight soft and gray. Come in the night or come in the day. Come, O love, whene'er you may, and you are welcome, welcome. You are sweet, O love, dear love. You are soft as the nesting dove. Come to my heart and bring it rest as the bird flies home to its welcome nest. Come when my heart is full of grief, or when my heart is merry. Come with the falling of the leaf, or with the reddening cherry. Come when the year's first blossom blows. Come when the summer gleams and glows. Come when the winter's drifting snows, and you are welcome, welcome. Now please welcome Oni.
That was very nice, and now we'll have. Oni.
Okay, thank you. Who's that knocking at the door? This poem is called Encouragement. Who that knocking at the door? Why, Ike Johnson. Yes, for sure. Come in, Ike. I thought you was mad about me at the other night and was just staying away for spite. Say now, was you mad for true when I kind of laughed at you? Speak up, Ike, express yourself. Tain't no use in looking sad and making out you's mad. If you ever gonna look so glum, I wonder why you ever come. I don't like nobody around that just shut their mouth and frown. Oh, now, man, don't act a dunce. Can't you talk? I told you once. Speak up, Ike, express yourself. What you come here for tonight? Why to think your head ain't right? I done all I can do, dressed particularly just for you. Reckon I better wear my old ragged calico after all the pains I took. Can't you tell me how I look? Speak up, Ike, express yourself. Bless my soul, I most forgot telling you about Tilly Scott. Don't you know come next Thursday night, she gonna marry Lucius White. Well, Miss Lai say I was always a heap sight like than her, and she'd make me something too if I wants to marry too. She'd make me something new if I wants to marry too. Speak up, Ike, express yourself. I could marry in a week if the man I'd want would speak. Tilly's presence would be fine, but they wouldn't equal mine. Him what gets me for a wife will be proud. You bet your life. I's had offers, and some ain't quit, but I hasn't married yet. Speak up, Ike, express yourself. I could marry in a week if the man I'd want would speak. Oh, I loves you. Yes, I does. You's my choice than you always was. Laughing at you ain't no harm. Go away, man. Where's your arm? Hold me closer. There, that's right. Now, wasn't you an awful sight, having me to beg you so? So ask what you want to know. Speak up, Ike, express yourself. Okay, now we're going to welcome Murphy. He's going to do an Irish piece or German.
Oni, that was great. And you're welcome to give Oni a clap on the reactions or wave at her or something. Thank you very much. Yes, this is Circumstances Alter Cases, and it shows you how an Irish man can see something in one way, but then when the circumstances change, he can see a different aspect and enjoy it. It uses a word in it, ochron, and ochron is like, oh my dear, or oh my goodness. So it has many uses. Circumstances alter cases. Tim Murphy's gone out walking with Maggie O'Neill ochron. If I was her feather, I'd frown on such fooling ochron. I'm sure it's unfeather-like, stern and wrong to let a girl hear tell of the sass and the song of every young fella that happens along, ochron. And Murphy, the things that's been said of his doing, 'tis a cud that no decent folks want to be chewing. If he came to my door with his cane and a twirl, for to try to make love to you, biddy me girl, I wouldn't have send him away with a whirl, ochron. They say the gossoon is indecent and dirty, in spite of his dressing so mighty. Let him dress up as fancy as a king or a queen. Let him put on more wrinkles than ever was seen. You'll be sure he's no match for my little Colleen, ochron. Faith, the two's coming back and their walk is all over. Huh. 'Twas a pretty short walk for to take with a lover, ochron. Why, I believe Tim Murphy's coming this way. Ah, Biddy, just look at him stepping so gay. Sure, I'd never believe what the gossipers say, ochron. He's turning the gate and he's coming a capering. Go, Biddy, go quick and put on a clean apron. Be quick as you can, for he's right at the door. Come in, Master Tim, for you're welcome, I'm sure. We were talking to you just a minute before, ochron. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. As I say, you might have had a bit of difficulty with my accent, but there you are. So thank you very much. And it's my pleasure there to bring our segment in Dunbar's social activism and to welcome back Oni. And I am doing the tack. So if you just wait a minute, I will highlight Oni wherever she's hiding. Oni?
Thank you. Thank you, Murphy. That was great.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, thank you. Our next segment is on Dunbar's activism, not only in his art of writing, but also in his personal life. Dunbar refused to take off his hat for the Pledge of Allegiance at a public event, and the mayor of Dayton visited him at his home to talk him into removing his hat. But Dunbar stood his ground against racism, against the prejudices and the injustices that affected not only him, but also his people. Listen closely to the encouraging messages found in Keep a Plugging Away, Emancipation, We Wear the Mask, and Lager Beer. And also the video of Dunbar's most famous poem, Sympathy, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings will be shown after lager beer. So we'll welcome our girl, my soul sister, Donna Marie Kaczynski. Another one of my soul sisters.
I thank you very much. It's a great honor to be a soul sister. It keeps me out of trouble. Paul Laurence Dunbar wanted everyone to know that it was important to continue to go after what was necessary and what they wanted. Keep a plugging away. He repeated that over and over. I have a humble little motto, and it's homely, though it's true. Keep a plugging away. It's a thing when I have an object that I always try to do. Keep a plugging away. When your rising storms to quell, when opposing waters swell, it will never fail to tell. Keep a plugging away. If the hills are high before and the paths are hard to climb, you keep on plugging away. And remember that success comes to him who bides his time. Keep up and away. From the greatest to the least, none are from the screw release. Be thou toiler, poet, priest, keep a plugging away. Delve beneath that surface. There is treasure further down. Keep a plugging away. Let the rain come down in torrents. Let the threatening heavens frown. You keep a plugging away. When the clouds have rolled away, there will come a brighter day. All your talents to repay if you keep plugging away. There'll be lots of tears to swallow. There'll be lots of pain to bear, but you keep plugging away. And you've got your eye on heaven. Some bright day, you'll wake up there if you keep plugging away. Perseverance still is king. Time its sure reward will bring. Work and wait, unwearying. Keep a plugging away. Seems like a lot of work, but the effort was well worth it to get where you needed to go. And I'm going over and introduce you again to Betty Haskins.
Thank you, Donna Marie. Keep a plugging away. As Oni told us earlier, Dunbar was born a free African in America, but he wrote this next poem about Emancipation Day. Emancipation. Fling out your banners, your honors be bringing. Raise to the ether your paeans of praise. Strike every chord and let music be ringing. Celebrate freely this day of all days. Few other years since that notable blessing raised you from slaves to the powers of men. Each year has seen you, my brothers, progressing, never to sink to that level again. Perched on your shoulder sits liberty smiling, perched where the eyes of the nations can see. Keep from her pinions all contact defiling. Show by your deeds what you're destined to be. Press boldly forward, nor waver, nor falter. Blood has been freely poured out for your cause, lives sacrificed upon liberty's altar. Press to the front, it were craven to pause. Look to the heights that are worth your attaining. Keep your feet firm in the path to the goal. Toward noble deeds, every effort be straining. Worthy ambition is food for the soul. Up, men and brothers, be noble, be earnest. Ripe is the time, and success is assured. Know that your fate was the hardest and sternest when through those lash ringing days you endured. Never again shall the manacles gall you, never again shall the whip stroke defame. Nobles and freemen, your destinies call you onward to honor, to glory and fame. And now let's hear from Mama Nzinga.
Thank you, Betty. Now, Dunbar, he had a very interesting job. His job was an elevator man. Now, he was born right after slavery. So, we wear the mask. What was he wearing on his face every time he went up and down elevator? We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile. And mouth with married subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let only see us while we live in mass. We smile, but, oh great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. Okay. Padar. Welcome, Padar. Thank you. Or we
Wow.
call him.
That was powerful, absolutely powerful. I'm just in awe of those different things. Donna Marie, keep a plugging away. And emancipation, goodness, that is so touching. And we wear the mask, that was a lovely rendering of We Wear the Mask. So I'm changing the tempo now because I'm going to do lager beer. And lager beer, again, Dunbar was a great salesman. He was selling the paper. He was sending poems to paper. So, of course, he wrote poems that would amuse people who read the paper. I read Circumstances, Alter Cases. And of course, that was to bring in the Irish. Now we have one to amuse the Germans and everybody else at the same time. This is a German dialect poem, Lager Beer. I laughs and sings and stomps around and sometimes act so queer. You ask me what the matter is. I'm filled with lager beer. I hugs my child and kiss my wife. Oh, my day was so dear. But that is when, you know, my friend, I'm filled with lager beer. Election comes, I makes my speech. Mine head, it was so clear. The people's laugh and say, ha ha, he's filled with lager beer. The other night I got me mad. The people's run with fear. The policeman come and took me down, all filled with lager beer. Next day I comes before the judge. Says he, you're here. I gives you just $5.55 for drinking lager beer. I took my pocketbook out quick, so poor I didn't appear. My money was all gone, my friend was gone in lager beer. And then they takes me off to jail to work my sentence clear. And there I swears no more to be filled up with lager beer. And from that day, I drinks no more. Yeah, that is very queer. But then I found the devil lived in that same lager beer.
Oh my.
Thank you. At this time, welcome back to Betty Haskins. And Betty will, for our next segment. So there you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Padar. Lager beer is one of my favorites, and I really like the fact that you may not find it in a lot of Dunbar books because it was written under a pseudonym, sorry. But Paul Laurence Dunbar had his feet firmly planted in American history. Born only a few years after the end of the Civil War, he rubbed elbows and wrote poetry of such people as Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, and Robert G. Shaw, the commander of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, which was immortalized in the Denzel Washington movie, Glory. We present this evening 3 of his poems rooted in that history. When They Listed Colored Soldiers, presented by Mama Nzinga, followed by Gail Mello sharing a tribute to Harriet Beecher Stowe, the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was published 20 years before Dunbar's birth. And finally, The Lawyer's Way, a humorous take on the justice system, shared by Padar Murphy. So let us welcome Mama Nzinga, When They Listed Colored Soldiers.
Reading. My great uncle John Ross was a colored soldier, and he fought in the Civil War. When they listed colored soldiers, they was talking in the cabin, they was talking in the hall. But I listened kind of careless, not thinking of it all. And on Sunday, I noticed they was whispering mighty much, standing all around the roadside when we let out of church. But I didn't think nothing about it until the middle of the week, until my lives come to see me. And somehow he couldn't speak. When I see all in a minute what he come to see me for, they listed colored soldiers, and my lives had gone to war. Oh, I hugged them and I kissed them and I begged them not to go. He told me that his conscience, it was a call in himself. And he couldn't bear to linger when he had the chance to fight for the freedom they had given him and the glory of the right. So he kissed me and he left me. When I promised to be true. And they put a knapsack on him and a coat of colored blue. So I gave him Pap's old Bible from the bottom of the drawer when they listed colored soldiers and my lives went to war. But I thought of all the weary miles that he would have to tread. And when they took him to the camp, I couldn't be contented. Why, my heart near broke with grief until I seen him on the street. Then I felt like I could go and throw my body at his feet. For his buttons was shining and his face was shining too. And he looked so strong and mighty in his coat of soldier blue. hollering up, "Step up, Manny." Oh, my throat was raw and sore when they listed colored soldiers and my liars went to war. Old Miss cried when Master left her. Young Miss mourned her brother Ned. And I didn't know their feelings were the very words they said. When I told them I was sorry, they had give up their all, but they only seemed prouder that they men had heard this call. But my masters went in gray suits, and I loved the Yankee blue. But I thought that I could be sorry for the loss of them too. But I couldn't, for I didn't know half of what I saw until they listed colored soldiers and my liars went to war. Master Jack came home all sickly. He was broke for life, they said. And they left my poor young master somewhere on the roadside. When the women cried and mourned them, I could feel it through and through. For I had a loved one fighting in the way of danger too. Then they told me that they laid him somewhere down south to rest, with the flag that he had fought for shining across his breast. Well, I cried, but then I reckoned that's what God had called him for when they listed colored soldiers to my life.
Harriet Beecher Stowe. She told the story, and the whole world wept at wrongs and cruelties it had not known, but for this fearless woman's voice alone. She spoke to consciences that long had slept. Her message, freedom's clear reveal, swept from heedless hovel to complacent throne. Command and prophecy were in the tone, and from its sheath the sword of justice leapt. Around two peoples swelled a fiery wave, but both came forth transfigured from the flame. Blessed be the hand that dared be strong to save, and blessed be she who in our weakness came, prophet and priestess. At one stroke she gave a race to freedom and herself to fame. Please welcome Murphy back. Thank you.
I need to take a few seconds because those poems were very moving. And I'm a long way away from the source, but oh my goodness, it says a lot about life, about humans, and about war. Thank you very much, ladies. Dunbar was a lover of law and a critic. So here's a more lighthearted poem. The lawyer's ways. I've been listening to them lawyers in the courthouse up the street, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm most completely beat. First one fella rizzed to argue, and he boldly waded in as he dressed the trembling prisoner in a coat of deep-dyed sin. Why, he painted him all over in a hue of blackest crime, and he smeared his reputation with the thickest kind of grime. Till I found myself a wondering, in a misty way and dim, how the Lord had come to fashion such an awful man as him. Then the other day our lawyer started, and with brimming tearful eyes, said his client was a martyr that was brought to sacrifice. And he gave to that same prisoner every blessed human grace, till I saw the light of virtue fairly shining from his face. Then I own that I was puzzled how such things could rightly be. And this aggravating question seems to keep a puzzling me. So will someone please inform me, and this mystery unroll, how an angel and a devil can possess the self-same soul? Thank you very much. Now we welcome Betty to proceed with the video. And okay, Betty.
Yes. So the video we're about to show contains about 2 seconds of upper body nudity, and it may be inappropriate for children. Sympathy is one of Dunbar's most famous poems written in standard English. You may be familiar with it because Maya Angelou, who also loved Dunbar, named her autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, after the last line of the poem. This video takes us from slave ship to ownership and is an example of how Dunbar's words have transcended time and are still relevant in our society today. After the video, Oni will return to introduce us to Dunbar's religious poetry and short stories. Enjoy the video.
I know what the caged bird feels when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft through the springing grass and the river. Sorry. Can everybody see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I know what the caged bird feels when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft through the springing grass and the river flows like a streaming glass, when the first bird sings and the first bud opes and the faint perfume from its chalice steals. I know what the caged bird feels. I know why the caged bird beats his wing till his blood is red on the cruel bars, for he must fly back to his perch and cling when he fain would be on the bow swing, and a pain still throbs in the old scars, and they pulse again with a keener sting. I know why he beats his wing. I know why the caged bird sings when his wing is bruised and his bosom sore, when he beats his bars and he would be free. It is not a carol of joy or glee, but a prayer that he sends from his heart deep core, but a plea that upward to heaven he flings. I know why the caged bird sings. I know what the caged bird feels when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, and when the wind stirs soft through the springing grass and the river flows like a streaming glass, when the first bird sings and the first bud opes and the faint perfume from his chalice steals. I know what the caged bird feels. I know why the caged bird beats his wing till his blood is red on the cruel bars, for he must fly back to his perch and cling when he fain would be on the bow swing, and a pain still throbs in the old scars, and they pulse again with a keener sting. I know why he beats his heart deep core. But I plead that upward to heaven he flings. I know, I know, I know why the caged bird sings. I know what the caged bird feels when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft through the springing grass and the river flows like a streaming glass, when the first bird sings and the first bud opes and the faint perfume from his chalice steals. I know, I know, I know what the caged bird feels. I know why the caged bird beats his wing till his blood is red on the cruel bark, for he must fly back to his perch and cling, when he fain would be on the bough swing, and a pain still throbs in the old scars. They pulse again with a keener sting. I know, I know, I know why he beats his wing. I know why the caged bird sings when his wing is bruised and his bosom sore, when he beats his bars and he would be free. It is not a carol of joy or a plea, but a prayer that he sent from his heart deep core. But a plea that upward to heaven he flings. I know, I know, I know why the caged bird sings. Caged bird sings. Caged bird sings. Okay. Thank you for watching. That was a labor of love. The people you saw in the modern day segment of the video is all the storytellers. And these are the storytellers who stand on the shoulders of Paul Laurence Dunbar. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope I did the right thing and stop sharing my screen. And now I want to bring on Betty so she can introduce the next segment. Betty?
Let's have, well, Oni, can you introduce our religion segment?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's me. Thank you. You're so kind to me, Betty. All right. Our next segment features poetry and a folklore, a short story that's been rarely heard or read, and it's based on the religious themes. Is that it, right? Okay, I'm on the right page. At an early age, Dunbar's mother and grandmother wanted him to be a preacher. Though he never fulfilled their desire, he wrote many poems and short stories on religious attitudes in the country and in the city. This segment, we feature one of Dunbar's many short stories. The Conversion of Abe Dixon will be presented by Betty Haskins. After Many Days, presented by Donna Marie, and Itchin' Heels by Wanda Owens. And When All Is Said and Done by Jody. Now let's welcome Betty as she gives us one of Dunbar's folk tales.
Oni, you're sharing the screen.
Give me that old-time religion. It was good for my dear preacher. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me. The congregation of the Antioch AME Church in the small southern town of Danvers was in a state of excitement after today's service. The Reverend Abram Dixon had announced that his only son, Robbie, who had graduated from one of those sedity colleges up north, was returning. Heads had turned and tongues had wagged when Robbie had left Danvers 6 years ago to study theology. Why, if God had called Robbie to the ministry, God would tell him what to say. He don't need no degree to preach. As Daddy Abe always said, I trust the inspiration of the moment and I preach whatever the Spirit moves me to say. And he did just that, coherent or otherwise. With him, religion was a matter of emotion, not a matter of reason. And he looked upon his son's desire to learn to be a preacher as unjustified by the real demands of the ministry. But the boy had a will of his own, and Reverend Abe had a boundless pride in him. And so, despite the wagging tongues of the congregation, he allowed him to go to that university. Now, 6 years later, Robbie was coming home, a full-fledged minister with his own church, a church that had given him a vacation. Reverend Abe was shocked that a congregation should give him a vacation and that the young lad would accept. Vacation? Vacation? And I wonder if they reckons that the devil gonna take one at the same time. Nevertheless, it was a joyous reunion between father and son. Why, Robbie, you's a man now, you's a man. That's what I'm trying to be, father. The young man's voice has deep and had taken on the inflection of a college graduate from a northern university. Why, you's a bigger man than I ever was. Oh, well, father, you never had the advantage of playing football. Playing football? Football? You means to tell me, Robbie, that they allowed men learning to be preachers to play such games? Oh, yes. They believe in a sound mind and a sound body, and one seems as necessary as the other in fighting evil. Football, football. What is the world coming to? When they arrived home, Reverend Abe inquired about his son's church and what kind of work they were doing up there, and Robbie was glad to oblige him. We do a great deal in the way of charity work among the churchless and almost homeless children. And Father, it would do your heart good if you could only see the little ones gathered together, learning the first principles of decent living. Well, maybe so. But what is you doing in the way of teaching them to die decent? Well, we think that one is the companion to the other, and that the best way to prepare them for the future is to keep them clean and good in the present. Well, tell me, Robbie, do you give them a good, strong doctrine, or is you just giving them milk and water? I try to tell them the truth as I see it and believe it. I try to hold up before them the right and the good and the clean and the beautiful. Don't sound right to me, but I tell you, Robbie, I want you to preach for me on Sunday. The folks want to hear you, and they want to see what you can do. You know, there was a lot of them that said I ought not to have sent you up there to that school. I hope you'll silence them. I don't know, Father, that I can silence those who oppose my going away, or even please those who didn't, but I shall try to please one, my God. Sunday arrived, and as Robbie approached the pulpit, he saw the look on the faces of the congregation. He could almost hear them say, Rob Dixon, we have not come here to listen to God's word. We have come here to put you on trial. On trial, you hear? Well, Robbie's sermon was a very quiet and practical one that sought to bring religion to them as a matter of everyday life. The people grew restless. They wanted something to sanction, something to shout about, something to say hallelujah for. And here was this man talking to them as simply and quietly as if they were in a schoolroom. Leaving the church, they were not shy about expressing their opinion. The man never even fetched not one amen. Only spoke for 22 minutes. His daddy would have spoke for an hour at least, getting all kinds of amens and hallelujahs. Well, I tell you something, it wasn't nothing but a lecture. Put him aside his father, and bless my soul, that old man could preach circles around him, and he ain't been to no college neither. Clearly, his father was also disappointed. Is that the way they teach you to preach at that there college? I followed my instructions as nearly as possible, Father. Well, Lord, help the preaching then. Why, before I had been in that pulpit 5 minutes, I had them people moaning and hollering all over that there church. And Father, would they have lived any more cleanly the next day? The old man shook his head sadly as one looking at one of the unenlightened. What was to become of his boy? Before leaving to return to the city, Robbie asked his father, "Come and visit me, Father. I want you to see the work I'm trying to do. I don't say that my work is the best or that it is a higher work, but I want you to see that I am in earnest." A year later, Reverend Abe kept his promise and went to visit his son's church. When he saw the little parsonage which Robbie's people had provided for him, he could only say, "Ain't you living kind of high on the hog, Robbie? What kind of a place is this?" Father, if you see how some of the people live here, you'd hardly say so. Well, early the next morning, they went to see something of the city before business was astir. They walked along the commercial portion, along the harbor, where they saw boys, black boys of all sizes and ages stretched here and there on the wharves and levees, curled up on door sills, stealing what sleep they could before the relentless day should drive them forth to beg pennies for subsistence. Reverend Abe had never seen anything like this. There was poverty in the little town of Danvers, yes, even squalor, but nothing like this. At home, almost everyone found some open door, and rare was the wanderer who slept out of doors except by choice. Such as these, we tried to get into our flock and do something for, said Robbie. At 9 o'clock, they found themselves at the police court. There, the old minister saw many of his race appear as prisoners, receiving brief attention and long sentences. Finally, a woebegone boy, hardly 10 years old, was arraigned for stealing cakes from a bakery. Just as the judge was about to deal with him, Reverend Dixon saw that his son had walked up to the judge. After a whispered consultation, the old man heard with joy, "As this is his first offense, and a trustworthy person comes forward to take charge of him, sentence upon the prisoner shall be suspended." Robert came back to his father holding the boy's hand, and the three made their way from the crowded room. Reverend Abe looked down at the boy and said, "Boy, what made you steal them cakes, son? What made you do it?" I was hungry," was the simple reply. That night, Reverend Abe observed his son teaching a Bible class to a group of young boys. The old preacher looked into the eyes of the street urchins, a fierce, unruly looking group, and he began to think and he began to wonder. They all seemed inclined to meanness and rowdyism, but one and all, they all seemed to be under the spell of Robbie's voice. At the end of the lesson, Robbie said to them, "Boys, this is my father. Come and shake his hand." They crowded around the old man heartily and readily and gave him 3 rousing cheers for the minister's pap, for the minister's pap, for the minister's pap. Reverend Abe thought, he wondered, he thought again. Something about him was changing. That night, he held his son's hand. He said, "Robbie, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand. Will you preach for me on Sunday, Father?" "I wouldn't dare, honey. I wouldn't dare." "Oh, yes, you will, Pap." "Pap? You call me Pap? You ain't called me that in a long time, Robbie." "Yes, son, I'll preach for you." It was a strange service that Sunday morning. The son introduced his father, the Right Reverend Abrams Dixon of Antioch AME Church of Danvers. And the father, looking at his son, who seemed so short a time ago unlearned in the ways of the world, gave as his text, "A little child shall lead them. A little child shall lead them." He spoke of his own conceit and vainglory, the pride of his age and experience, and he told them the lesson he had learned while being in the big city. "Why, people, I feels like a new convert, just coming to understand the ways of Jesus. I've learned that the point from which something is viewed is of some importance." It was a gentler gospel than he had ever preached before, and in the congregation there were many eyes wet with tears, as was his own. "Reverend Dixon," the old man said to his son when the service was over, "I believe I had to come up here to be converted. Yes, I had to come here to be converted." And the Reverend Dixon smiled. "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." The conversion of Reverend Abe Dixon. So now let us welcome Donna Marie.
Oh, lovely, Betty.
Thank you, Betty. That really is a touching story. And it's true, a little child shall lead them. Paul Laurence Dunbar had a quirky sense of humor. He was telling something funny, but he didn't want to come off as a jokester. He wanted it to mean something. And so that's what this is. After many days, I've always been a faithful man and tried to live for duty. But the stringent mode of life has somewhat lost its beauty. The story of the generous bread he set upon the waters, which after many days returns and to trusting sons and daughters, makes you think, doesn't it? Yeah. Had often pressed me. So I went, my soul influenced by it, and bought a loaf of bread and sought a stream where I could try it. I fancied then to await it. It had not floated far away when a fish came up and ate it. And if I want both fish and bread, and surely both I'm wishing, about the only way I see is for me to keep on fishing. And now, are we coming back to Betty?
Let's go to Wanda.
Wanda? Wanda is gonna, yes, I apologize, Wanda.
No problem. Itching heels. For the piece of my itching heel set down, don't fiddle that tune no more. Don't you see how that melody stirs me up and begs me to take to the flow? You know, as a Christian, good and strong, I worship from June to June. My prayers, they are loud and my hymns are long. I beg you, don't fiddle that tune. As a crick in my back and a misery here, why the joints is getting old and stiff. But it seems like you brings me the breath of my youth. Well, I noticed a whiff. Don't fiddle that tune no more, my child. Don't fiddle that tune no more. I'll get up and tear up this ground for a mile, and then I'll be churched for a show. Oh, fiddle that tune some more, I say, and fiddle it loud and fast. As a youngster again in the midst of my sin, the present's gone back to the past. I'll dance to that tune, so just fiddle away. I knows how the backslider feels. So fiddle it on till the break of the day for the sake of my itching heels. And now let's welcome back Jody.
When all is done. When all is done, and my last word is said, and ye who loved me murmur, he is dead. Let no one weep, for fear that I should know and sorrow too, that ye should sorrow so. When all is done, and in the oozing clay ye lay this cast-off hull of mine away, pray not for me, for after long despair, the quiet of the grave will be a prayer. For I have suffered loss and gravest pain, the hurts of hatred in the world's disdain, and wounds so deep that love, well tried and pure, had not the power to ease them or to cure. When all is done, say not my day is o'er. Say that through night I seek a dimmer shore. Say rather that my morn has just begun. I greet the dawn and not a setting sun when all is done. And now, please welcome back Betty.
Thank you. When all is done. And so we're coming to the conclusion of our program today, but we're going to end our program on a celebratory note. One of Dunbar's best poems is this fun and humorous piece brought to us by Oni. Oni, take us to the party. Take us to the party.
Thank you, Betty. I'm waiting. Thank you. This next poem is one of Dunbar's longest poems ever, okay? When I told my uncle, who was a thespian, he was performing in Black theater back in the 60s. And when I told him I was studying Paul Laurence Dunbar, he asked me, he said, can you do the party? And at the time I said, no. And he said, well, you ain't doing Dunbar. So I took it as a challenge. Bless his soul, Sidney Gallienne was his name. And this is the party. I like to do this piece in a Juneteenth program, and you can learn it too. It's a great piece to recite for Juneteenth celebrations. the party. They had a great big party down at Tom the other night. Was I there? You bet, honey. You ain't never in your life seen such a sight. All the folks from 4 settlements was invited, and they come. They come trooping just like cheering when them cheering hear the fife and drum. Everybody dressed their finest. Hush your mouth and go away. I ain't seen such fancy dressing since last quarter meeting day. Gals all dressed up in silk and satins, not a wrinkle nor a crease. Eyes are batting, teeth shining. Hair slicked back as slick as grease. Skirts all rough and tucked and puffed. Every blessed seeming stitch. If you seen them with their misses, you couldn't swear to which was which. Men's was all dressed up in Prince Albert's. Swallowtails will take your breath. I can't tell y'all nothing more about it. Y'all have to see it for yourself. Who was there? Now who you asking? How you think I was going to know? You think I stood and counted everybody at the door? Well, old man Barber's houseboy Ike, he brung that gal Melinda Jane. Her hanging on his elbow and him just a strutting with a cane. Ma was Harvard Jones jealous. It liked to stick him like a thorn, but he laughed with Vine and Cather, trying hard not to let on. But a person couldn't help from notice from direction of his look. He was watching every step that Ike and Linda took. Ike, he pulled out a chair and asked her, "Won't you sit down?" with a smile. And she laughed about it, giggling, "I reckon 'tain't worthwhile." But honey, that was just for style, I reckon, because she sat down just the same. And she stayed there till somebody come and fetch her for to play some sort of game. And then I see her in a minute with the others on the floor, and they wasn't any one of them playing anymore. That gal come down that floor, bowing and a swinging and a swinging, putting on her high tone manners all the time she was singing. "Oh, swing Johnny, swing around, swing around. Oh, swing Johnny, swing around. Oh, swing Johnny, swing around. Fare thee well, my darling." Oh, she was showing off. Well, I had to laugh at old man Johnson. He said, "Caution now, you bet. He pushing close near to 100 and he's sly and nimble yet." While he loud out sort of giggling, "I ain't old, I'll let you say. Ain't no use in getting feeble. You youngsters, just watch me." And then he grabbed old Aunt Maria, weighed 300 more or less, and he swung her around that cabin, swinging Johnny like the rest. Everybody laughed and hollered, "Go it, swing Uncle Jim." And he swung her too, I reckon, like a youngster. Who but him? Oh my, that was better than young Scott Thomas. He tried to be so awful smart. When they gets to singing and they get to that day part, "In some lady new brick house, in some lady garden. If you don't let me out, I'll jump out and fare thee well, my darling." And when they forms a circle around you and then you got to break the line? Why, that brother got so anxious like to kill himself for trying. He kept on fumbling around and blundering around and fooling until he take one great big jump, broke the line and lit head foremost into the fireplace right plump. Had fire in it, mind you. Well, I thought my soul I bust. I tried my best to keep from laughing, but it seemed like die I must. You ought to see that man scrambling from the ashes in the grime. Did it burn him? Why, such a question. He didn't give it time. He threw them ashes and them cinders every which way, I guess, and you never in your life clap your eye on such a mess. And he surely made a picture. And a funny one to boot, with his clothes all full of ashes and his face all full of soot. Oh, God. Why, that'd like to start the party. And I reckon like as not, if Tom's wife, Mandy, she didn't happen on the spot to invite us to supper. Oh, we scrambled to that table. I want to tell y'all all about it, but I ain't able. Well, I'll tell you just a few things, though I know I had an order, because you're going to start hankering and your mouth will miss the water. We had wheat bread, white as cotton, And an A poem just like gold. Hog jowls, boiling, steaming, roasted show, and ham, sliced cold. Look out, what's the matter with you? Why you falling on the floor? If I know to take you that way, I wouldn't tell you nothing more. There now, there. We had hot chitlins. Oh, now you're trying to get in the fall. I guess you just up and heard and seen it all. See them great big sweet potatoes laying by that possum side. Seen that coon and all his gravy. Reckon then you up and died. Mandalow. Mandalow. You all must excuse me. It wasn't much upon my shelf, but I tried my best to suit you, so sit down, help yourself. Tom, he loud. Don't leave in no apologizing and professor. Let them get it like they catch it. Elder Jackson, say the blessing. Well, y'all ought to see that colored preacher. You ought to see that colored preacher clear his throat and bow his head, one eye open and one eye shut. This is every word he said. Lord, look down and tender mercies on such generous hearts as these. Make a truly thankful amen. Pass that possum if you please. Oh, my. Well, we ate and drunk our potions till there wasn't nothing left. We felt just like new sausage. We was most not stuffed to death. Tom, well, he knowed how we was feeling, so he had to fiddle around. And he made that fiddle, he made that fiddle clear the table for we could dance that fiddle down. Jim the fiddler chewed his fiddle, put some rosin on his bow, set that pine box upon the table, mounted her, and let her go. He's a fiddler now, I tell you. And he made that fiddle ring till the oldest and the lamest had to give their feet a flame. Jigs, cotillions, reels, breakdowns, quadrilles, and a waltz or two. Why, that music like to wing 'em, and then people like to flew. Joe, the old rheumatic, he danced that floor from side to middle, throwed away his crutches and hopped it. What's rheumatic against a fiddle? Well, I'm telling you, Elder Thompson, he got so tickled that he liked to lose his grace. Had to take both feet and hold them so to keep them in their place. And the Christians and the sinners got so mixed up on that flow, I don't know how they'd have parted if the trumpet didn't have chance to blow. Oh, well, we danced that way and capered in the most ridiculous way till the rooster in the barnyard cleared his throat and crowed for day. Oh, y'all ought to been there. For I tell you, everything rich and prime, and it ain't no use in talking. We just had one scrumptious time.
Oh, we surely had a scrumptious time. Yes, we did. This evening was full of surprises, poetry known and unknown, and short stories and singing, and just a delightful time. Let us welcome all of our performers. I think we're going to turn on the chat now, show them your appreciation, and we invite your comments, your questions, and if you have a poem to share with us, we certainly would love to hear that. I'm going to bring Oni back on. For some closing remarks.
Yes, we welcome you if you brought a poem to share or read, or you just put your hand, go in the reaction at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand, and we would love to hear from you. And this Dunbar is community. Paul Laurence Dunbar, Nikki Giovanni said that Paul Laurence Dunbar was community. He brings people together. And that's our intention as well, is to bring the community together. So we welcome any comments, or if you have a poem you want to share with us, we'd love to highlight you too. Enjoy it with the program before we leave. Anybody?
That was very nice.
Unmute yourselves and let's hear your appreciation for these wonderful performers. They were great. Woo-hoo!
Everybody was wonderful. So Joseph, you have anything? You're going to do a Dunbar poem for us?
No, I don't have a poem. I have a couple of comments and
Okay.
and I have a question. I haven't read Dunbar for a long time now. My favorite ones were Emancipation, The Spelling Bee, and when they listed colored soldiers. But there was another story, and I think it was about Paul Dunbar telling stories to his grandmother, whom she had told to him when he was a child. And I can't remember the name of that. I don't know if anybody.
Do you remember any line from it? Do you remember a line?
I don't.
Joseph, was it a short story or a poem?
It was a poem.
How about the Cabin Tale about the weasel and the bear?
Don't know that one.
Okay, Michelle says she loves when Melindy sings.
The other thing is, one of the things that really drew me to him was his style. He has this conversational poetry that if you read it out loud, I don't think you can read it. You have to read it out loud to hear it. And it's just like somebody sitting right next to you telling the story of what happened last night, what happened last week. It's just amazing.
Yes.
They call it conversational prose. And that's what he was so unique in. And that's why we compare him to Shakespeare, because the people didn't always talk in rhyme like Shakespeare did, but they did do their prose was in voices. So that's what we call it, conversational. Thank you, Joseph. Anyone else want to comment or say anything? How's our time? I have 8:33. Did we do good on time? Is that 90 minutes?
We did good.
Yes. Okay.
I enjoyed it. And Joe, I agree with you that, Joe, I agree very much with you that, you know, the first few poems I heard from Paul Laurence Dunbar, I heard a year ago. That was the first I had ever heard of Dunbar. I am not a literate person. I'm a mathematician. And just the two poems, they caught me. And just
Well, I've been to the Dunbar home a couple of times, and my son was going to Dayton, and I sent him there. I'm part of the Ohio Storytelling Network. We had 2 different storytelling conferences there, probably 5 years ago and 8 years ago.
That's great.
Wonderful.
I enjoy the different poems and I respect many of those poems that when they listed colored soldiers, it says so many different things. And as I say, I was more interested in sums and maths and equations when I was at school.
That's okay. You're catching up now. That's for sure, Murph. So we want to tell everybody that our group meets at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, and everyone's welcome to join in and to, you know, be with us. We're looking forward to doing his in June is his birthday, so we're looking for presenting another program in June. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to always be doing Dunbar. So I'm glad I can just do it with my friends. we're going to have this annually every year for his remembrance and also for his birthday in June. So we'll have twice a year, we're going to be doing Dunbar. So if you want to be involved with us, come on in. We'd love to have you. The more the merrier. And I think Michelle did ask, Michelle asked about when Melindy sings.
Was it the real Michelle?
Was,
Yes. Yes, real.
Listen,
Yes, no one did Melinda Sings, but maybe I hear it in June, and I hope to join you guys on some Thursdays.
well, how much time do you have? How much time? I'm trying to speak. How much time do you have?
Today?
Yes, right now.
What? I got time.
Well, if Betty's up to it,
I don't want to put Betty on the spot. I can wait to June.
No, please.
No, if Betty's up to it, we have time and she'd love to read it for you. And I mean, Betty does an excellent rendition of it. And I don't think you want to wait till June, okay? So we're going to hear When Melindy Sings by my soul sister, Betty Haskins.
This is for you, the real Michelle.
I'm honored.
Go away and stop that noise, Miss Lucy. Put that music book away. What's the sense of keep trying? If you practice till you gray, you can't stack the notes of flying like the ones that rant and rang from the kitchen to them big woods when Melinda sang. You ain't got the natural organs for to make the sound come right. You ain't got the turns and the twistices for to make it sweet and light. Now, I tell you one thing, Miss Lucy, and I'm telling you for sure. When it comes to real ride music, ain't no easy thing to do. Now, it's easy enough for folks to holler, looking at the lines and the dots when there ain't no one consensus and the tune come in and spot. But for that real melodious music, that kind of that strike your heart and it just clangs. Stand and listen with me as Melinda sang. Yeah, you ain't never heard Melinda, blessed soul, take up the cross. Look at here. You joking, ain't you? Oh, well, you don't know what you done lost. You ought to hear that gal a wabbling. Robins, lats, all of them things, hush their mouths, hides their faces when Melinda sang. Fiddler man, he just stopped his fiddling, lay his fiddle on the shelf. Mockingbird quit trying to whistle cause he's so shamed himself. Folks playing on the banjo drops their fingers on the strings, bless your soul, forgets to move them when Melinda sang. She just spreads her mouth and hollers, come to Jesus, he will save you. Come to Jesus right now, right now. Till you hear the sinner's trembling steps and voices, a timid like, a drawing near. Then she'll turn to Rock of Ages, cleft for me. Let me hide myself in thee. And you find the tears just a drapping when Melinda sang. Now, who that say that humble praises to the master never count? Hush your mouth. I hear that music as it rises up and mounts, floating by the hills and the valleys, way above this here barren side, as it makes its way to glory, to the very gates of God. Oh, it's sweeter than the music of an educated band. And it's dear, yes, than the battle song of triumph over the land. And it seemed holier, yes. It seemed holier than evening when the silent church bell rings. As I sit and I calmly listen as Melinda sings. As Delza, stop that barking, hear me? Melinda, make that child keep still. Don't you hear the echoes calling from the valleys to the hills? Let me listen, because I can hear it through the brush of angel wings. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. When Melinda sings, when Melinda sings.
That was wonderful, Betty. Thank you so much.
You are welcome so much.
You know, Dunbar really uplifted the Black woman, you know, in a time where we didn't have television, you didn't have digital communication, you know, and only things were read in the newspaper. So he really, especially the Black woman in the South, he really uplifted us. He really did. And all cultures, really, he tried to, you know, show the human side of everyone, no matter, you know, European, African-American, no matter what heritage they were. And that's why his poetry is so important for us. And that Melinda sings, if you get a chance, go on YouTube and Google Aretha Franklin's funeral, and you'll hear Cicely Tyson do her version to Aretha Franklin, where she substituted Melinda's with Aretha Franklin when Aretha sings. And of course, everybody has their own style. When you want to perform Dunbar or do Dunbar, everybody brings their own personality to it. And of course, we all love Betty. We're all partial to Betty's. So thank you, Betty. And Mama Nzinga, you did a great job of our colored soldiers. I know this was your first time, I think it was your first time doing it publicly, and you did a great job. Thank you so much. Jody, you were great.
You did indeed, Mama Nzinga.
Gail, Gail, you were wonderful. Your intensity and your love pieces really touch my heart. So I'm sure other people felt it too. And Wanda, where did Wanda go? Did she have to leave? I don't see her. Looks like our Wanda had to leave, but she did a great job. It was her first time performing with us. So if any of you are interested, just meet us on Thursdays. We have a lot of fun. We have a wonderful introduction called Daily Dunbar. The link is paullaurencedunbar.org, where Betty introduces us on really some she digs deeper into Dunbar, and we do the Daily Dunbar. So we open with that, and then we talk about the programs we offer. Our programs are also offered to schools. If you know any Paul Laurence Dunbar schools that are interested, we're not charging to the Paul Laurence Dunbar schools. But any other schools, it depends on, what their budgets are like, but we do want to, have a honorarium because I think we're worth it. Do you think we're worth an honorarium?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And our whole objective is to teach a new generation the richness of his works. So I'm going to be here as long as I can sit up in my rocking chair. I'm going to be doing Dunbar twice a year for this kind of function that we had. This is the second time we had this. The first time that we had a Remembering Dunbar, Miss Laverne Ski, she was in charge of the Dunbar House for many years in Ohio. And she asked me when COVID came, you could stop recording, Murphy, if you want. So Miss Ski asked me to organize a show in 2020 because she wanted to have people do a celebration. Every year they go to his gravesite